Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be our monthly ASIC pricing update video. This is going to be for February 24. Today's officially the last day, is the 29th. We do have a lot of new miners that did kind of change the dynamics, and we just had this crazy pump, so we want to see how it affected the prices, right? So we're going to take a look at different things, look at different trends, see what went up, what went down, what's kind of staying flat, just to get an idea where prices are going, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So overall, market-wise, completely different place than we were when I did last month's. Last month's BTC was at 42,000, almost a 50% increase. BTC is currently at 61. Yesterday made it all the way up to $64,000. Okay, insane run, right? And it rallied all the other alts. ETH went up to over 35, almost 36. A lot of the other alts went up. Coinbase took a dump yesterday though, and that kind of scared the market a bit. So things did retrace. Ultimately though, a lot of the alts did come back. BTC is still over $61,000 currently, which is pretty insane. So initially I was going to do the video yesterday, but it kind of made more sense to let the market swallow all this information and kind of see what's going on. In reality, didn't really change a whole lot, right? So that's kind of give us clues as to what's going on, right? And it's not all miners, it's specific miners, right? So we'll talk about it. We'll look at the trends here. As we go into profitability, what the big glaring changes are the new additions, right? Currently, we now have the new king. That freaking Bitmain, the KS5. Profitability at a 10-cent kilowatt hour, $220. So we're back to one of those crazy figures, and that thing is just a beast, right? It pretty much doubled the previous competitor, which is the KS Max, and before that was the K9. So it's just dominating, right? So pretty much it's all kaspas. As we go down the list, not a whole lot of huge changers. Some did change, right? Some to get a little good price action, so that's why they did go up. One big one though was that K7, right? CKB has had a massive run up, and that one did change quite drastically, right? We'll look at the prices, we'll look at where it's at, we'll look at kind of things to consider if that's one that's on your list. Another big changer was the SIA coin miners. SIA did just dump the other day. It did hit a peak of like 2 cents and a 50% drop in a day, right? So far it's been staying there. Even with that massive rally, they unfortunately did not move, but there were some changes in the dynamics there as well, right? So we'll cover those here in a second. So let's get to one of the big things was Ice River did not fully restock. They did do a restock finally. So the KS3Ms did come back in stock for a bit on their site. They are still available from third-party websites. Still nothing on the KS1 and KS2, which is kind of weird, right? To me, rumor mill, maybe they're preparing other variants, maybe kind of like how they did the KS0 and the KS0 Pro, a stronger model just to kind of keep up with the competition, right? Something, because there is a pretty big gap between the KS2 and the KS3M, right? It's going from 2 to 6. Maybe they're working on a 3 or 4 terahash unit to kind of just fill that void a little bit to replace the 1 and 2, because that's going to kind of be the name of the game with this thing. As time progresses, these smaller ones are going to get almost like phased out, right? Like we mentioned way long ago, the KS1 is essentially going to be like the KS0 was, probably within the matter of months here, right? So just different things to consider. But one cool addition was that freaking KS0 Pro, the commemorative edition, which I'm debating on getting. I do think I probably am going to order it, and then just when I do get it, I'll just freaking sell that guy for the same price. More of a novelty aspect, not necessarily because like, oh, I'm going to try to ROI. Just as like a commemorative thing, just to freaking, it's been the year of kaspa. This bear market has been just kaspa just from the beginning, right? It's been a extremely fascinating thing. Would be a cool little memento, but we'll see what goes on there. So price wise though, the KS3M, they did go down a little bit, so it went down to $68.99. On their website, did sell out almost immediately, and this is, just keep in mind also, if you buy it from whoever, the spot price was high. The spot price was like $8,500 to $9,000. A lot of those did already sell out as well, depending on your store and vendor. This price, though, the reason it's priced lower is because it's so much farther out, right? The shipping date is March 15th to 31st, but what's been happening is they don't ship until that last day, meaning you probably won't get it in hand until sometime like mid-April, right? So just factor that in if it's something you're considering. A lot of stuff can happen between now and then. Just even, again, just a matter of a few days, right? We had the freaking Ivy Link monster, and then what happened right after? The KS5 came out of nowhere, right? So this was kind of a teaser. This is kind of what we're expecting after the announcement of the KS5s, were for there to be price drops with some of these units, just to kind of entice people to purchase multiples of these versus one KS5. It's not a very aggressive cut though, right? To me, just they're still kind of overpriced considering that it's not much cheaper than what it was like 3 months ago, yet the rewards are about half of what they were 3 months ago, right? To me, that's the big thing. I know they're getting a lot of questions whether if I think it's worth or not getting. Again, that's all up to you, but like I mentioned, for a few people, that's the way I'm seeing it, right? It's been a 40-50% cut in rewards and only a 10% cut in price, right? So that math to me ain't mathing, right? Realistically, for it to make sense, this thing would need to be in like the 4 to 5K range, but not likely to happen just because of Kaspa's price action, right? It's currently doing pretty well, and again, that's gonna be that balance thing, and it's a tough thing to tackle, right? The longer you go out, the kind of riskier it gets, right? So it's just a lot of variables to factor in, but to me, it's kind of on the high end, right? Let's look at some of these other prices though. So again, they do have the delivery model here from NHash. It was lower, I think it was around 65. Now it's currently 69. They did have the delivery model in stock at this price, and even at this price it did sell out. But again, this because it was spot, because it's available now. That's why there's such a big disparity. So we look at the KS5 Pro, and this was kind of messing everything up. So this, take it with a grain of salt. A lot of the other stores, a lot of the Telegram vendors do have it significantly higher already, right? They're still listing it at $32.99. This is a pre-order, right? So reality, you don't really know what the shipping window is. It might be a little while, right? Just because, again, a lot of the stores that do have like spot inventory, the few spots they have left, for the few that have any left, it's a lot higher. It's above 35. From what I've been seeing, it's between 37 to 39 to 40, right? So keep that in mind. And in a way, if you are a current Kaspa miner, that's kind of a good thing, right? The higher that thing stays, the likelihood that your miner's value stays up high. Because to me, that's kind of one of the biggest threats. Like, yes, there's the ever-increasing hash rate, the emissions reductions, but to me, a big looming threat with getting any of these is potential price reductions, right? We've seen them in the past where they're extremely, extremely aggressive at times, where it's like 40-50% from one batch to the other. So it extremely sucked to pay like, you know, 7K one month, and the next month it went down to $4,500, right? Not super likely to happen, but it's just, you have to understand that risk. So as long as, I know a lot of you guys have been asking, you have to be willing to stomach that, right? And this has been the case for like months and months and months and months, right? It's something we've been mentioning, and it's something that's happened, right? Because initially it was pretty much every month, drop, drop, drop. Certain months were higher than others, and to me, that's when it was the time to jump in. So like when I jumped in November, it was a very significant drop. And that's the reason I jumped in at that time. So a lot of this is still timing. It's not to say like, oh, it's too late for the KS3s or anything like that because of this guy. It's timing, right? Because again, as the hash rate goes up, that profitability is going to go down. And it's timing it, right? As crazy as this thing seems like, oh, it's 30K now. In 6 to 8 months, it's probably not going to be near that price just because the profitability is going to go down so much. Because that's the big thing you have to understand, that these crazy prices are not because it costs that much to manufacture the unit. It's purely based on the profitability. Okay, so as that profitability does tank, so will these prices. That's why it's possible for these things to go from 32K down to 15K. That's why like the KS3 went from 45K 1 week to 22K, right? And it's just whoever drops first. Again, we've been covering this whole game between Bitmain and Ice River these past like 6 months. It's been a game of like 4D chess with Ice River winning, right? Ice River aggressively undercutting Bitmain, and Bitmain being forced to reduce to the point where it got to where it's at. Now though, a little different with this guy because I don't think they're going to be able to compete with this. Where they can compete though is by having those aggressive price reductions. Having their KS3 go down to the point where, man, I can get 3 KS3s and have a lot more hash rate than one of the, you know what I'm saying? Like that's going to be their strategy. Who knows when they do it? Who knows if they do it? Who knows if the price goes down, right? Kaspa right now, looking pretty bullish. I think it'll go to 20, 25 cents. And then what do you think is going to happen? Right? We're not going to get, so it's this constant risk versus reward, and it's up to you to decide if it's worth it or not, right? So tricky situation, right? So as we look at other prices, again, this is more of a realistic price currently of the KS5, 40,000, 39,000, and it's still going to fluctuate, right? Because I know a lot of the other big guys are also changing, like the KS Max. This thing has been all over the place, right? It was at 11K at launch. Then the thing sold out in like a day. By the next day, it was up to 13, 15, 17. But then again, the announcement of this freaking Bitmain unit changed the game, right? So unfortunately, there were people who bought this thing at 17K. Factor in though, again, price is good to here, yes, but look at this batch date. Okay, this is anywhere from April 20th to May 10th. Okay, so they sold probably way more than what they should have. So that's why a lot of the stores are still going to show as sold out. They're going to have to allocate and see how many in reality they do have. I know some people have been getting emails that are probably going to be delayed a little bit. So keep in mind, if you ordered and you still haven't gotten shipping or any confirmation, you want to check in and get an update on that. See if they can give you anything. Realistically, it's probably going to take a few weeks till they start shipping out those initial batches, and they can kind of see what production is at, right? To give you a better ballpark. But for example, with Nhash, they already do have it at that window, right? So something to take into account there. Another big change was Kadena had that pump last month, and that's what really skewed that price. It did kind of like find that leveling action kind of back in the same range actually. So it's back into the low threes. They do have the 173. So again, there are two models now, the 173 and 166. Nhash does have the 173 at 33.49, so it'll be about 3,500. So again, it is a little bit higher, but it is because that profitability went up. Right, so ultimately it kind of went back down just because of the difficulty. Because even right now, currently with the price action going up, because it was at like $1.10, it ultimately is at like $1.30. Let's look for it. It is. Ooh, I didn't even see it. Probably passed it. Let's just search for it. So we search for it up here. KA3. And it's not bad. $8.49 profit a day. Right, but again, like we had mentioned, it's because of the difficulty. So even if the price did reach that $1.30, $1.40, profitability wasn't gonna be the same because of that difficulty going up, right? And this is the perfect example of that, right? So even though it's nice to see that nice price action and that bullish chart, it's like these networks in reality are still very small. It doesn't take a whole lot of units for that hash rate and difficulty to go up, right? So that's why. Again, it's nice to see, but if you're a miner currently, it kind of sucks to see your yield go down so much. Because again, currently they have it here at 12.2. Realistically, it's like 13, 14. But prior to that pump, it was like 20, 21 KDA a day for a long period of time, right? So we are having a similar situation now with the K7. This is one that swung extremely wildly, right? It went anywhere from up to like 3,500 all the way up to like 5,000, 5,500 because of that insane run up that it had, right? Ultimately, it did kind of come back to earth a little bit. It's anywhere from like 3,000 to 4,000, right? So Terahashes has like the 63 at 42, the 58 at 36. BT Miners has it about the same, right? So it's give or take in that ballpark. So now it's under 4. So again, this is one where people were FOMOing in, and again, just within the matter of days, it went from like 5,000, 5,500 down to these amounts, right? So it's one of those things where even currently, like luckily the price still continued to go up, and currently it's holding. But just factor in that that difficulty is going to continue to go up, right? So even though the price is holding up, the profitability is going to continue to go down. Just because of that, right? So right now, luckily, the price has been doing extremely well still. So that's why profitability is good. So the 58 terahash unit is making about $20 a day. But again, don't be surprised to, number one, see that price retrace, and then number two, the difficulty go up, which is what we're talking about. And unfortunately, it is happening, and it has happened, and it did already exceed what I thought was going to happen, right? Realistically, I thought this was going to happen around mid-March, right? So again, because people are still getting their orders in, it's already there, right? It hit a peak at 211, so it did even surpass the peak that we had prior to the halving, because again, CKB did have a halving right at this time, right in mid-November. So a lot of people, even with inefficient hardware, they just decided to plug in because again, the price action had it down to here, right? This thing was barely break even. Nobody wanted it during this time. It was just making only a couple bucks a day. But again, this was when it was the good time to mine, right? Yield was excellent for this whole time. Difficulty and everything did go up just because, again, the halving was coming. People wanted to get every little CKB they could, even out of the inefficient hardware prior to that. And then once it did happen, it barely stayed profitable, right? So two factors. One, the price did go up a bit, right? Because the market did start going up in November. Things were looking pretty crappy leading up to it, but luckily the market in general did start pumping, so the price did go up, and then the difficulty went down. So it did get to that point where it found that equilibrium of being just slightly break even, right? Didn't really make a whole lot, but it was slightly break even. But that was my goal, right? That's all I kind of wanted at that point. As long as I got that, the thing was staying plugged in, which it did. And then we hit this low, so yield was excellent, but then we hit that freaking use and that pump, and it just went through the roof, right? So currently, again, yield is down about 25%, and it's because of that 25% increase in the hash rate, right? We'll see if it goes beyond the peak. It looks like it most likely will. Again, we're at the end of February. People are still getting their orders in. They're going to come in the next week or two, and it's probably going to exceed this peak we had at 224 back in April, which I don't know if I'm buying if this was real or not, but most likely it's going to consistently stay up here. And then at this point, people just got this thing, so they're going to keep it plugged in, right? Even when the profitability starts going down, if price goes down, it's going to stay plugged in, so it's going to stay up at this range, right? It had realistically dropped over here because of the halving, and people had already, you know, this was hardware they already had, so they're trying to just maximize it, okay? So just factor that in. We'll see how it continues. We'll see if it keeps pumping, right? Even if it just stays anywhere near this range, it doesn't even have to even if it stays above 5 cents, I'm good with that, which is because of how much it's pumped, it's very realistic now, right? But pretty good stuff there. Another one that did drop, the XPs, right? So Nhash has the 134 model down to $22.99. Okay, and these were the ones I was kind of curious about to see how the market was going to react with that pump yesterday, specifically with BTC miners, right? Prices did not really go up, okay? And the market did have an entire day to digest it. Some things did move. The S90K, for example, did go up slightly, but literally $50. That's all it went up. Okay, so the XP is down to $22.99, 200 shipping, so $2,500 for the 134. To me, the better deal, freaking the 110s are $12.99, so under $1,500, $14.99 shipped. Crazy. Okay, so it did go up $50, so they did adjust the price because of that pump. But to me, the bigger thing, what this is kind of signaling is that there is a ton of stock. Okay, realistically, these things should have started going up. And it's almost kind of weird because even if they do have a lot of stock, you would think that they would just want to just hold on, wait for a little bit, because again, these things are going to be worth a good chunk more. People are saying 5, 6x. I don't know about all that, but a 2 to 3x, definitely possible. Maybe, hopefully higher, especially the way BTC is going. Reality, who knows? But again, I try to be very conservative with my estimates, right? So factor that in also. But ultimately didn't go up, so there is a possibility this thing may get cheaper. I would not risk it. At this point, again, at the lowest I could see it going, the day after the halving, everybody's super bearish because profitability is in the negatives, $1,000 or something, right? Is it worth risking that $300 for this thing potentially doubling by then? It's up to you. Again, it's the whole risk versus reward thing. And again, it is going down just because, again, you're going to have extremely limited time as far as mining it, double the yields prior to the halving, right? So I know some of you guys were upset, oh man, I bought it 4 months ago and it was $1,500. It's it was $300 difference, you have mined the difference between now and then. Peak time to mine this thing was any time prior to this halving, right? The people who made out the best are people who were purchasing any of the units last year, right? To kind of get in the game now, should have been in it a while back, right? But who's to say? Should still pan out though. As far as, and when I'm saying that, it's as far as like maximizing, right? It doesn't mean like, oh, if you get it now, you're gonna get right. No, not at all, bros. You're gonna be fine. Okay, even with the halving, yes, it may be rough for that little bit, but again, create that game plan and don't overthink it, right? Like if to me you're predicting it's gonna be a significant loss, you're gonna pay that electric anyway, right? So you already know how much it would be for that month. Like personally, that was gonna be my strategy for the K7. I was pretty much convinced it was gonna most likely be at a loss. So what was I gonna do? Not just completely stop. I was still gonna continue DCAing, just unplugging it, and that money that I was gonna use for electric, then just use that same money to just buy the BTC outright if you're gonna yield more BTC that way, right? That way you're just still continuing, right? I mean, if it's only slightly at a loss, I wouldn't even bother with all that. I would just continue mining. But if it's significant loss, like you're losing a couple bucks a day, then that's a little bit different, right? Especially spread out over having like multiple units, and it would tend to add up, right? But realistically, when you do the calculations, I know sometimes like, oh man, I'm getting my revenue and I'm cutting it in half, and the way it is right now, it's going to be at a slight loss. Maybe I'll be break even. Factor in a couple things, right? The calculation in reality is not that simple because the difficulty is also going to drop a good amount, right? The people with older hardware and efficient hardware, because again, everybody knows right now is the time to get yield. So if they have old equipment, freaking S9s, S17s, all that crap's going to be plugged in right now because they're trying to get every little bit they can of that unit before it gets cut in half and pretty much potentially almost useless. Like the S9s, for example, most likely even in the bull market are probably not even going to be profitable, right? Maybe break even, maybe a couple bucks, but it's not going to be like the previous cycle just because the hash rate has gone up so much since 2021. And the units are so much more efficient also, right? So people with like S19s and up, you're going to be fine, right? It's just, again, there may be a time after the halving, might be a few months, 2-3 months, maybe a little bit longer, but again, ASIC, long game. Should not be thinking too much about the short term, and again, don't overthink it, don't overstress it. If you made that investment, just have that plan ready and execute, right? Think about what happens. Like me personally, if I had a BTC miner right at the halving, I would be unplugging regardless, just because the network is going to be a whole shit show for probably the next few weeks. Again, the difficulty adjustments are every 2 weeks, so it's going to be a freaking shit show for quite a while to things kind of balance out, just like with like the ETH merge for any GPU miners who were there for that. It was a freaking shit show for like a month, right? It took quite a while for things to finally begin to settle and people finally come to a realization of what was going on, right? So have that plan, be ready for it. We know it's coming. If you have one, crank out as much as you can right now, right? Take advantage. But again, freaking $1,500, and this is what has me like, this is part of the reason, even though I'm not super interested in getting one, like this is what makes it hard to consider. Like I've been thinking about either adding another ASIC or adding GPUs. Realistically, I really want to add GPUs because that's just, I like the flexibility. But it makes it so hard to consider when just the ASIC prices are so much lower in comparison to the GPUs, right? For example, even just like one of these guys, bringing in like $10 revenue a day, right? Whether it's profit or not, it's just revenue. In comparison to buying like, this is what, a 4080, right? Bringing in like $1.52 a day, or even let's say a 4090, mining like $2.50 of revenue a day. Like it is a very hard sell right now because of that. So that's what has me kind of like, like I keep almost pulling the trigger on GPUs. I kind of have the game plan out that I want to do, but it's just like, it makes it very hard. Like even, I don't know, man. It's just, it's very, very tough decision just because it's not only this ASIC, just a lot of the other ASICs in general, right? Even the other ones that are like $2,500, $3,000. It's like, even if you get a decent deal on some 3070s, if you get a 10 card rig, so you get them at $3,000 or $300 a pop, it's $3K. That's another ASIC also. That in many cases, in most cases, is going to bring in more revenue than that, right? So, tough thing. We'll see where prices go. The deal that would be degen. That what might make me get into a BTC miner though, or would be the newer guys, right? The S21, the M60s. If there's a significant price cut because they have excess inventory, that may be one I would consider. More specifically, the What's miners where my eye would be at more than anything, right? But we'll see how low they go, if they go low at all, right? The What's miners have realistically have been staying in the same range. Those haven't lowered. The S21s have. You can get them in the high threes now for in stock now. So we'll see. We'll keep our eyes on them. But again, if you're getting S19K, for me personally, the play for me at least, get the 110 model and then overclock or underclock that thing. Again, you have like Brains firmware, you have these Epic boards, you have different options, and I would mess around with that, right? Because that's going to be the kind of beauty with BTC mining. This generation, more so than previous generations, you have extreme flexibility, right? In some cases, even directly from Bitmain having that low power mode, all those things, right? So something to consider there. This is another one that changed drastically, and this is one of those things we're talking about with like buying the old hardware, right? So this thing was on Gold Shell's website for $3,700. Even though it's listed as sold out, it is readily available from pretty much every distributor at varying prices. They're trying to squeeze out as much as they can. Even like Gold Nhash has it at $31.49. Seeing a lot of the Telegram vendors have this thing at like $27, right? So don't be surprised to see this thing go down even further. Why? Again, it's because it's older chips, and because what happened? Pretty much what we said was likely to happen was some form of competition, right? And it's silly because realistically, they have it listed out, sold out on their site. Why? Because they're probably getting ready to put out the SE6, which is what should have came out, right? And it's going to destroy this thing. But the way they can get away with it is just listing that one as being sold out and like, oh, okay, we sold out of that one, guys. Here's the SE6 now. Even though, again, in reality, it's readily available, okay? And again, this is the reason that that price went down. This guy was going to be comparing that the other guy was $3,700. This guy's $4,400, $700 difference. This is a significant upgrade, going from 11 terahash with the other guy to 19 here with similar power consumption, right? So a lot more efficient, a lot more powerful. Very similar to the SE6 though. When the SE6 comes out, it's going to be priced around the same, pretty much the same efficiency, pretty much the same output. Right, we'll see where they price theirs at. I'm sure they'll price it either right at there or maybe slightly under. Who knows? We'll see where it goes. A lot of it's going to have to factor in what happens with Sia Coin, right? Again, they had that pump, so recently their profitability dropped quite a bit. So like, for example, if we look up the SC5, it is currently netting about $4 profit a day. But again, factor in it's because of partially freaking it tanked 50%. So if it recovers, if it goes back up, then expect those to be in the same range, right? So, and then also factor in, it looks like IBLink might be really releasing a max version of this guy, potentially a BM-S3 Max, which was, if the rumors are true, 32 terahash at similar wattage, right? So factor that in. Again, we don't have confirmation on that guy. We just saw a picture that was a leak from their site. It might be a typo. Who knows? We'll wait for official confirmation. But just keep that in mind with that risk with these known older chip ASICs, right? Another one. This one did go down a bit. It did actually sell out. This was the cheapest store out of all of them that had the... Because again, there's two variants of the Z15 Pro, the 820 and the 840. They had the 820 at $2,049, so $2,249 shipped, which is pretty freaking good. That one did sell out. They only have the 840 now at $2,379, so closer to $2,600, which to me the sweet spot was at that $2,000 price range. So there is still time for this guy to be valid. My main appeal with this guy is, number one, being able to mine the different algorithms, or not different algorithms, the different coins on that same algorithm, right? The prominent one that's advertised is for Zcash. Realistically, I would be more about Zen. Zen would be what I would have my eye on here. That's what I would be mining, mainly because I have no interest in Zcash, but it is nice to have that option in case it were to pop off, but I kind of doubt it. Zen, though, factor in that they do have a halving this year coming in December, so in about 10 months. So there is still time to make a good amount of yield prior to that halving, but just factor that in, right? But again, you do have other coins you can mine. You can mine like Pirate Chain, you can mine Komodo, so there are other options there, right? Another one we've been following and just refuses to really budge is the Jazz Miner, the X16Q. it's just staying in that $3,000 range, right? So it is definitely selling well. Even like the in stock, it's about the same price. It's been pretty much hovering here. At one point in like November, it looked like it was hovering in the 2,500 range, right? And again, we were seeing those different variants. The variant thing is kind of weird because they don't really list them in too many stores. But again, it's still in that range. The E9 Pro still is remaining also in that $3,000 range, right? The time to get that guy was in the beginning. Again, anywhere around launch, it would launch at $1,299. Was at like $1,700 for quite a while. Was under $2,000 in that $1,700 to $2,000 range for a good chunk of this past year, right? Currently now it's in the $3,000 range, right? So when these guys are 1-to-1, obviously the E9 Pro has a lot more hash. That would be kind of where my eye is at. The advantage here though with this guy is the flexibility in coins and the extreme efficiency. The fact that you can have this guy in the house, you can have it on 110, right? If you're in a situation like me where heat is gonna become an issue here pretty soon, because Florida summer is just around the corner, right? Pretty much March is once we're like right now we're already mid 80s. Okay, our summer is 95. Okay, so we're pretty much gonna be in summer temps. I don't think we're gonna have any more cold days from here on out, right? So like for me, would consider adding a full big boy ASIC, but like to add these smaller guys, would definitely rather have it inside, right? So something to consider there. And those are the main price fluctuations. I was kind of predicting to have maybe more fluctuations on the BTC miner price, but again, my guess is that there's just an oversaturation of the market currently, right? To me, that's the only thing that kind of makes sense as to why they didn't pump so much. So for you guys holding out super last minute, you may be able to find some deals, because again, there is the S19K Pro. The J Pro Plus looks like it is starting to sell out at certain stores. But then factor in, there still is that S19J XP, which we didn't even mention because the price just kind of stayed the same. So there is a lot of inventory still, right? And this is not even factoring the new guy, the S21 and the T21, right? So maybe some deals to be had. But again, if you're dead set on getting one, I don't know if the risk, I don't know if it's worth waiting, right? There's a lot of risk there. I would probably just jump in. But if you're kind of on the fence, we're like, I'll get one if it's cheap enough, then this potentially you may find some deals, right? So let me know, guys, what are you guys doing? You guys pretty much done? You guys still looking? You guys think that some things are gonna pump? Are you guys still fascinated with kaspa? I know that's still the number one question I get, regardless of how many videos I do, regardless of how many videos other people do, kind of giving you the lowdown. People still kind of just super fascinated by it, and I get it, right? Kaspa is just hype, a lot of potential. Who knows, right? Do your research, look at different things, look at price trends, right? That way kind of gives us clue as to what's going on. Realistically, I think the play would be for potential the price to go down, especially on the KS3Ms. Gold Shell's going to announce theirs literally any day. It's supposed to be a potential small miner and a bigger miner, right? Which those can have an effect on the price if they come in aggressively, which considering the track record, I really realistically don't think so, right? We'll have to wait and see. We're going to play that game. We're going to keep you guys updated. But again, let me know in the comments, guys, what you guys are doing. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and I am out.